I know exactly who I'm calling. And speaking of that, there was actually a segment in that I think goes nicely here. So, Sam, the reason that you came to my attention and how stuff like this started was your tweets started doing the rounds on rugby Twitter, and they were starting to bridge across. And then, as we've been discussing forward, I saw how these could branch into other sports. In terms of when you said how I kind of labeled the section as free agent signings, but it's not really that. So the first tweet yours that did the round was, here's the list of people that do not have a contract, and there is no reason on God, other deities are available, Green's Earth, why they should not have a club. How do you genuinely believe a team could build a title-winning team off of like free agent Moneyball type players?
No, sadly.
All right, sack that then.
Yeah, so I think the problem is that everyone on that list I genuinely believe should be part of the club and should be professional in one of the top leagues or Pro D2, which obviously second French league.
That's better than most pro leagues in other countries.
Exactly,
Pro
yeah.
D2.
Yeah, so they should be up there. However, the fact is, if you look at Moneyball as an example, the reason why the Oakland A's had to do what they did was because they had no cash, and so no team would and no team should try and build a team based purely on those kind of Moneyball principles. Because what you should do if you're in a team with loads of cash is you should wait for someone cheaper but more intelligent to find the advantage, and then you continue your big advantage of being incredibly wealthy, and then in 2 years, once they prove the advantage works, you just steal it off them because you can see what they're doing. So that's essentially what happened with Moneyball, is that the Oakland A's had a couple of years where they had this big advantage, or not big advantage, but they had an advantage by being more intelligent. But they still couldn't beat the Yankees because the Yankees had, twice and a bit more money than they did. And so all the Yankees did was they said, okay, you're picking that player because he's undervalued, whereas I'm happy paying twice the value of this player because he's already better than yours. And that's kind of it with rugby. Whereas if you look at it, like, for example, Morgan Ames, the lock from Bay, was he Bayonne? I forget where he was now. Or the lack, maybe the one that I suggested, kind of the big four, like Viking style big lock.
Okay.
He's a great pickup. Like I bet he would go cheap. He's still young. He's got experience in Pro G2. Like he's a very good player. He's quick. He's everything that you'd look for in a lock. And pretty much every team in professional rugby should be looking at him to pick him up. However, if Evan Exabeth is available, you should pick him up because he is better. And so that's where the advantage of just having a ton of cash comes in, is that you don't need to kind of scrabble around trying to find bargains. You just chuck money at the problem and hope it works. And actually, going back to just something like Team Sky and now Ineos, is that a lot was made of the marginal gains. And I 100% think that was happening. I think that they were getting big gains, or not. They were getting marginal gains from those things they were doing, from having their own mattresses and all the kind of cleaning stuff that went into it, and all those kind of little fine margins. But undeniably, the biggest margin they had was being exceptionally wealthy and being able to pick up the best climber in the world, and then pay the best supporting climber for him, and then pay the best supporting flat rider. And that was what the biggest game was. They weren't winning because of the marginal gains. They might be winning by more, but they were winning because they had a huge amount of cash that they were willing to throw at the problem. And you see that with that with Leinster. Like a team like Newcastle, for example, who don't have as much cash. The best way for them to compete with Leinster is not to try and get the same players as Leinster and try and play the same game plan. It's to find those hidden gems. But if you're Leinster, just go and sign whoever you want, really.
And South Africans.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And same with the French teams. Like, if you're the small one, go and try and find the hidden gems. But if you're Toulon, clearly the best thing they did was sign Habana, sign Wilkinson, sign whoever those that they had when they won the Heineken Cup. So yeah,
I find that so interesting that there is still such this advocate for these free agent signings, and they're almost like a. Would you say they're kind of not a plug a gap, because nobody's a plug a gap in a pro rugby team? Like, it's like when people are like, oh, he's shit, and I was like, I wish I was good enough to be considered shit at pro rugby,
yeah,
like, sort of things. But they're kind of you still need them in a team. Even you said like the financially wealthy ones still want these club players that will stick around for cheaper than superstars and go, we know we can give you an eighth of what we're giving that guy, and you'll stick here for 10 years, and we never have to worry about having a sub 12 ever again, because we know you're going to do the job in the LV Cup and then do it when the internationals go away.
exactly. I actually think that that obviously even super rich teams don't have a bottomless pit of money. At some point, they become like the cheaper teams because they're going, well, we need to maximize our investment. So who's the cheapest but best person we can buy? It just happens that that's not their starter. That's their third choice or fourth choice. Whereas for the cheap team, that's the starter that they try and pick up. So definitely that everyone on that list, I think, well, maybe not everyone on that list, a lot of people on that list, I would look at if I were, Leicester or Saracens or Leinster, because why wouldn't you want to pick up someone who was really good, who was also cheap? And if you look at some of the best signings of the over the seasons, it's not often that someone is signed who is who on a massive price tag who's worth their money. So there are obviously good players, and you look at someone like Finn Russell who went to Racing, who was still is very good and worth the money probably that they're paying him. But you also get with loads of people who are incredibly expensive, who aren't really delivering. Whereas the people that the players that people love are those cheap ones who are there all the time, who fill a gap, who are successful, who are good players. And so when you look on like club forums, for example, very rarely are they praising the expensive guys. They're praising the second string lock who stepped up that season and is now a starter, because ultimately that's kind of who we all want to get.
People love a homegrown story as well. Nothing does well like a homegrown story. So
yeah, exactly.